Hi everyone, and welcome to this final video about classical mythology. What I would like to do in this video is, well, recognize you and your wonderful efforts to complete this class in the summer nonetheless, which is always a time in which people would like to be more free. But you are here and you are taking this class, and I'm so glad you did, and I hope you enjoyed it. So a few things about final remarks, final takeaways that I would like for you to take from this class at the end of it, and then some comments, some advice, and some reminders on the final assignments, the final things that you need to complete to submit. Sorry, to complete this class. So first of all, congratulations. You did it. You're almost there. You've almost completed all the requirements to finish this class and to get a grade and credits for it. There are a few more things that you need to do, so just pay attention for the next few deadlines that I'm going to remind you of. So a study guide. A study guide is available. There you'll find more information on the final exam. I'll tell you something about that in a moment. But the final exam includes certain topics only, and so you should definitely look and read the study guide that's been available in this module, Module 15. Final due dates. So the final assignment, remember the second part of it's coming due this Wednesday, July 8th. This is the last day of class, so do not miss this deadline, because after that, I cannot guarantee that you'll be able to submit anything for credit. So part 2 is due at the end of day on that day. Part 1, remember, is due instead Monday, July 6th. So the final exam instead will open on Monday at 10 a.m. New York City time. You will have a couple of days to complete it. So if you cannot complete it at 10 a.m. on Monday morning, because maybe you'd like some more time to review, or that's not a convenient time for you, you have all day Monday until the end of the day and day Wednesday to submit this final exam. Now keep in mind that I'm giving you 2 attempts on the final exam. Just you've had 2 attempts on everything pretty much for this class. So make sure that if you want to take advantage of a possible second attempt, you give yourself enough time. Now, as you should see in the study guide, you will have 70 minutes to complete the final exam. 70 minutes on the first attempt, 70 minutes on the second attempt, should you decide to do the second attempt. Remember, this is entirely optional. So plan ahead, okay? Because you need, just like the quizzes, once the time starts, then you'll need to complete that exam in 70 minutes unless you have specific accommodations that you have submitted to me already. So if you have anything that you have missed for some reason, I understand it's summer and some of you made plans, some of you have been working, some of you have been visiting family. So if you have anything that you have missed, including some of the last video lectures or some of the discussion entries, please submit it as soon as possible and by the end of Sunday. If you are submitting stuff after Sunday, especially, that for some reason you could not complete for an emergency or something, something again major, by Sunday, please email me and I'll see if I can accommodate your request. I'll try my best, but keep in mind that the end of the semester is coming up. I'll have to calculate your final grades and submit them in the next few days. So that's my requirements as a teacher. So please, if you have anything, again, that you've missed, submit it as soon as possible by tomorrow, Sunday. grading if there is anything that in your case, in the cases of some of you, I haven't graded yet, like some of the discussion entries, for example, or stuff that's upcoming. They will be graded soon, so do not worry about that. And final remarks on myth and on its relevance. So I hope that you enjoy the class again, and I hope that one of the key points that you've taken from this is that myths were stories, right? They were stories that were passed down from generation to generation of humans, and so they were traditional. And they were stories that were meaningful for the societies who created them, the Greeks and Romans in the case of classical mythology. And they were meaningful because they helped them understand the world around them. They helped them shape that world in many ways. And they helped them cope with all sorts of difficulties that, as human beings, they would have had. So these stories that you've learned, or some of which you've learned in classical mythologies, because this was a selection of them, originated and shaped ancient cultures, particularly the Greek and Roman culture. But as you've seen in some of the parts about perception or comparison especially, these were stories that in some form or another, maybe with different names, but with similar patterns, they also were part of other cultures with which the Greeks and Romans interacted. So, for example, the Persians or the Egyptians or the civilizations in the Levant area. And so keep in mind that these stories are the result of, yes, people who inhabited the areas that were inhabited by Greeks and Romans, and of course this do not always apply in the ancient times to Italy or today where today is Italy or today where today is Greece, but to a large area of around the Mediterranean Sea, right? Because the Greeks kind of spread through colonization, through creating new cities, and the same thing the Romans did at some point. And the two of them interacted. So this culture kept changing. The values, however, kept somehow transforming, but some of the core values remained the same over time. And so these stories were ways in which the Greeks reflected and explored timeless struggles that we might even have today. So some of the struggle included, for example, how should people deal with moments of transitions, right? Or how should we deal with the fact that we need to have rules as a society, but we also sometimes would like to have our freedom. And where is that our freedom ends? And where is that freedom begins? Or other important struggles like when in a society there are people who have more power than others, well, how is that power handled? And how is that society, how are those leaders selected, and how are those leaders who lead others in a society making sure that the whole society remains healthy, right? So some of these issues were explored in the stories we have seen, and there were ways of making sense sometimes, of explaining and shaping the reality around them, right? So when we saw, for example, creation stories at the beginning of the semester, it was a way for the Greeks and eventually the Romans, of somehow understanding where is that as humans we come from, what was there before us, how were we created, and what somehow led to the gods that, in this case, the Greeks and the Romans eventually honored, right? And so they created stories around them, and the stories kept changing somehow. Some of the core details remain, but as you have seen sometimes, these stories, the details could change, the reasonings behind the characters could change, and this was somehow a way to adapt to different times. same stories adapting to times that were changing. It was a way to accompany moments of change and transitions. And we've seen, for example, the importance of Apollo and Artemis in accompanying moments in which Greek kids turn into young adults. And so myth was a way, together with rituals, to accompany these moments and to somehow provide some comfort and to provide some explanations for the changes that must have been felt as, you know, making an impression, sometimes not the most positive impression, especially when these changes were not wanted. So they were not just entertainment, but entertainment, of course, provided a big element of these stories. That is why oftentimes we go to read stories, or we go to TV shows or to the theater to watch and to learn about stories, because we want to be entertained. But entertainment in myths is always something that goes hand in hand with teaching lessons, shaping values, what is that we believe on, what does it entail to be a hero, what does it entail to be a good citizen living in a society, right? These stories explored all of these topics, and they keep exploring them today. So keep also in mind, as we have stressed more very often, that these stories were the product of a patriarchal society that had very strong social and gender expectations and boundaries. That the point of view was often that of male authors, as we have seen, and of course that had an impact on the shaping part of the society, because they were trying to shape society in a way that it was built for them and to keep them in a position of power. But we've also seen examples, such as in the tragedies of Euripides at the end of the 5th century, to give a voice to the oppressed minorities, women, but also foreigners, people who were somehow subjected to social and gender inequality and exploitation. And we've seen these authors somehow, through arguments, somehow trying to get the audience to analyze how this social and gender inequality and exploitation was often the source of instability in a society, of unhappiness, and resulted often in fights, in violence, in an unending cycle of revenge, and therefore in tragic outcomes and suffering. These stories still echo through literature, art, and pop culture today. When you go to buy a jewelry at a Pandora store, for example, or the Nike type of brand, right? Or when you have something called Trident for the freshness, right? Or when you have a site called, or a company called Amazon, they all have roots in the ancient classical mythology. So I hope that you've also understand something more about the culture in which we live, and the language that is used to express it. In this case, oftentimes the English language, which is made of words like tantalizing, right? Like Tantalus, or expressions such as having or completing an Herculean labor, or completing some completing a Sisyphean task, right? Sisyphus. So all of these expressions come from classical mythology, and I hope you now know why you use them in English every day. So mythology isn't just about the past. It's a powerful lens for understanding, like I write here, the present and the stories we still tell. So keep questioning, keep imagining, keep using myth to entertain, but also to make the world around you a better place for everyone, like the ancient Greek and Romans have tried to do. And I hope that you end up carrying with you a bit of Athena's wisdom or of Hermes' ingenuity and curiosity, and some healthy balance between Apollo's strictness and rationality, and Dionysus' irrational approach and emotional approach, and the courage of some of the ancient heroes and heroines to always speak for what you believe is right, and this being wherever you go and wherever you are. So I hope you enjoyed the class again, and if you're interested in more classics courses or classical studies opportunities, visit the page of the Department of Classics at Hunter College, Classical and Oriental Studies, the Classical Studies program. You'll see there a bunch of other courses for the upcoming fall, including courses on Greek civilization, the Roman civilization, or specific authors and their poems like Homer and Virgil, or introduction to archaeologies in case you want to become someone who digs underground to find out, to uncover the ancient monuments or ancient objects from the past, from the past of the Greek and Romans. So that was it, everyone. I hope again you enjoyed the class, and good luck for the upcoming assignments, and including the final exam. And I hope to see you in some of my other classes in the future. If not, again, it's been a pleasure. Have a great rest of your day, and have a great rest of the summer. Bye, everyone.